Me being the chosen one was like a blessing and exception. City known for homicide, majority depression. Grinding in the gym so I could live through the...
What it do, YouTube? It's your boy Mike from NYC, and we back with another reaction. Today, we are watching Making the Case Larry Bird, alright? This might be one of the last Larry Bird videos I do for a while, I think. Maybe one or two more, but I'm not gonna really do too much on Larry Bird specifically. But, you know, I just reacted to the Michael Jordan mixtape, and I come to terms with the fact that he's the GOAT. Now, I also posted a Larry Bird mixtape, and you know, the comments on that video, one of the best videos I've ever done on this channel. And everybody's saying Larry Bird's the GOAT, Larry Bird's the GOAT, right? So let's really talk about it and let's really dissect. Is Larry Bird really the GOAT? Or is he just like your favorite player? Kobe's like my favorite player. Like Kobe's the GOAT. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Kobe is inspiration while I play basketball, but is he really the greatest to ever do it? No. So today we're gonna talk about, is Larry Bird the greatest to ever do it, for real. Without any more of me talking, let's get into the vid.
Basketball is special.
I'm
the
locked
size
in.
of the court and the lack of pads or helmets
in.
give fans the most intimate experience of a team sport that exists. And because of the different styles that basketball allows for, players develop their own distinct identities and signature styles through their creativity, flair,
Saucy,
and athleticism. And although no player succeeds alone, the scoring volume and two-way nature of the sport give individual stars a nearly unprecedented amount of control over the flow and outcome of a game. For this reason, players are constantly compared to their peers and to the legends of the past in order to answer the most hotly contested question in the sport: who's the greatest to ever do it? For many, the question is redundant. They believe in only one right answer, their answer. Others might have their own personal stance, but acknowledge one or two alternatives. But I believe that there's much more nuance to the question of greatness and more answers to it than you might think. By my count, there are 8 players in NBA history that have a substantial claim as the GOAT. It's a subjective thing though. I can't give you a definitive answer. All I can do is make the argument.
Okay.
So today, I'll be making the case for Larry Bird as the greatest basketball player of all time.
Let's get straight to it. Let's get straight to it. Larry Bird, a legend. You already know he about to give you a lesson. And one foul, I'll be at the free throw line every time I spit the rhyme
When it comes to basketball, Larry Bird is the smartest, clutchest player to ever play the game. Now, if you don't think that Larry Bird is the greatest basketball player of all time, you probably hate that I just said that. Those are the kind of talking head sport cliches that surely impact the game, but are impossible to empirically measure.
Exactly.
Normally, I'd agree with you, but I think that when you talk about Larry Bird, you see those intangibles become real, palpable results. I wouldn't have said it if I didn't believe it. When Larry Bird was drafted by the Boston Celtics in 1978, the NBA needed saving. Attendance was in the toilet, the league had few marketable stars, cocaine addiction had several players in its grasp, and, most damning of all, playoff games were being tape delayed. Playoff games at the highest level of basketball were being put in the back seat for black and white movies and network reruns. But rather than join the Celtics after being taken 3rd overall, Larry Bird decided to return for his final year at Indiana State, a decision that would prove to be one of the most important in the history of the sport. Bird's final year saw the Sycamores tear through college basketball, going 33-0 before the national championship game. Bird, already claimed by the NBA's most historic and prestigious franchise, had established himself as the generational talent who would inherit the mantle of pro basketball. Indiana State's opponent in the national championship was Michigan State, captained by the immortal Earvin Magic Johnson.
Damn.
The Sycamores lost the championship to the more talented Spartans in the highest rated game in the history of basketball at any level still to this day. The stage had been set. The next decade of basketball would be defined by the rivalry between the white hick from French Lick and his Boston Celtics and the black Magic and his Showtime Lakers. The rivalry between Bird and Johnson is entwined into the fabric of the NBA and is worthy of 100 documentaries. In this video, though, we're going to be looking at Bird's claim of supremacy. Here's Bird's basketball resume. His 3 championships come with perhaps the highest collective degree of difficulty of any player's championships.
Okay.
His 3 MVPs came consecutively, making him only the 3rd player to accomplish the feat, along with Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain.
Okay.
His 2 Finals MVPs are misleading. He was absolutely the best player on the 81 Celtics, but he was only a sophomore, and his 15 points per game in the finals gave the media an excuse to exact a little vengeance on a legendarily difficult interview. His all-star and first-team selections also come with the caveat that Bird only played for 13 seasons and missed all but 6 games of the 89 season following surgeries on both feet.
Wow.
I can hear you already. A 13-year career, and this guy is supposed to be the GOAT? What color of paint are you huffing, Clayton? Green, obviously. But hear me out. Yeah, Bird's career lasted about 2/3 as long as it should have. But what he did in that time was so impressive and so substantial that every basketball fan acknowledges that he's in the conversation as the greatest ever.
That's true.
Doesn't it matter that those 13 years saved professional basketball, delivered a disproportionate amount of memorable moments, defined the golden age of the league, and produced a career by which all other forwards, before or since, are measured? Bird squeezed every drop of talent out in those 13 years and made it seem more like 30. He didn't just leave his fingerprints on the game. He left so much of his DNA in the sport that it needed a cigarette afterwards. There's something to be said about the candle that lasts half as long but burns twice as bright. Those 3 MVP years stack up with any other run by any other player. I will put an A+ Larry Bird season up against anyone's. What does an A+ Larry Bird season look like? A full box score, a blowout win, a nearly undefeated record at home, and a play style that could only be described one way: white. Larry Bird isn't just a white basketball player, he's the white basketball
He's the
player.
white of white.
To describe Larry Bird's game is to thumb through the Hoops dictionary and pick out every cliche about white players. Unathletic, great shooter, good fundamentals, the whole thing. The archetype of a white basketball player is Larry Bird, with one exception. He had an unparalleled understanding of the game of basketball, both as a physical contest and as a mental competition. His basketball IQ infected everything he did and catapulted his career into legend. Bird was a complete player. Jerry West called him nearly as perfect as you can get. He was the league's first great marksman. He could contort his body to shoot from anywhere on the court, regardless of the level of defense. He pioneered the art of the dagger 3 and was the founding member of the 50-40-90 club.
Wow.
At 6'9", Bird's understanding of angles and coordination led to a higher rebounding average than Patrick Ewing, and it made him an impressively adept finisher in his younger years. 86, Bird dropped 47 points on the Blazers, playing the majority of the game left-handed. His lack of quick lateral movement meant that Bird didn't do much when it came to slapping the floor and picking up the opposing point guard, but his size and omniscience gave him the ability to body similarly sized players, read defenses like a free safety, and pick off passing lanes with ease. His passing was transcendent, and I'll highlight it later. And of course you need to know that Larry Bird was a tough MFer.
Tough MFer.
He had a superhuman motor and dove for loose balls like a beagle at the park. He was a willing participant in his share of fights, often precipitated by his league-renowned trash talk.
Damn.
Bird told Robert Reed he never stayed in. He should have stayed in preaching. That was funny. He had 50 points. I was guarding him my rookie year. He looked at
Funny,
me.
it had 50 points.
You can't stop
It's
me.
so funny, it had 50
And I
points.
said, gosh, boy, you're so confident. He proceeded to score like 10 straight points on me. The coach took me out the game. He walks by and he's laughing at me.
He was a basketball genius. He'd be a step ahead, a thought ahead, play the game like a chess game.
Ooh, it is chess though.
Jordan and Larry Bird, because you have to play the game as a thinker when you're playing him. You have to get inside his mind.
If you put all of us in a room, Magic, Jordan, myself, and Bird probably be the guy who walks out of the room at the end of the day.
Did you notice
fuck does
something
that
during
mean?
those testimonies? Those are some of the best basketball players of all time, and they all sing Bird's praises like they were former assassins who had to go toe-to-toe with John Wick, and they're just happy to be alive. Bird excelled during one of the most talent-rich periods in league history. The abridged list of his basketball rivals goes like this: Dr. J and Moses Malone on the Philadelphia 76ers, Sidney Moncrief on the Milwaukee Bucks, Isaiah Thomas, Bill Laimbeer and the Bad Boy Pistons, Dominique Wilkins on the Atlanta Hawks, Bernard King on the New York Knicks, Michael Jordan on the Chicago Bulls, Hakeem Olajuwon and Ralph Sampson on the Houston Rockets, and of of course, Magic Johnson, James Worthy, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on the Los Angeles Lakers. Alright, there's no point avoiding it any longer. We have to look at Magic versus Larry. If you have Magic over Larry, it's because he has 5 rings to Larry's 3, had a peak that lasted about 2 or 3 years longer than Larry's, and had a 2-1 record against Bird's Celtics in the finals. Perfectly legitimate, completely respectable arguments. But in the interest of making Bird's case, allow me to retort. For nearly the entire decade of the 1980s, the Eastern Conference was irrefutably the more competitive conference between the two. Considering the competition, for Bird to have made 5 finals appearances is just as impressive as Magic's 9. As for the head-to-head record responsible for Magic's 2 extra titles, he had more help. Seriously, the Celtics' Big 3 and the Lakers' Big 3 get compared all the time historically as if they were of equal caliber, but weren't Magic's accomplices just a step above Bird's? No disrespect at all to Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish,
No disrespect.
but Kareem was the alpha dog on the 71 Bucks and was the best player for at least 2 of the Lakers' 5 titles.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
James Worthy was the #1 pick out of UNC after winning a championship as the best player on a team that had Michael Jordan on it. Throw in the fact that Magic got to be coached by Pat Riley, one of the most brilliant minds in basketball history, and you could say that the Magic Bird argument comes down to one thing: luck. So if their careers come down to luck, the question just becomes who you would rather take. Now, I'm not making this video to tell you why you shouldn't take Magic. I'm making this video to tell you why you should take Bird. Not just over Magic, but over everybody. One thing that helps him is the fact that his play would translate perfectly into the league today. A 6'9" sharpshooting forward with eyes in the back of his head who averaged double-digit rebounds in an era against Moses and Lambeer. He'd gobble up boards as a power forward. He'd be an offensive mismatch against everybody as a small ball center, and his off-ball skills and passing would pair perfectly with the flow of today's game. Add in his competitive mania and 3 generations worth of medical advancements, and we're talking about a player who could have stuck around so long they would have had to rename the league. As you've been watching these clips of Bird, I would hope that you would notice something. He always knows where everybody is. Watching Bird play basketball is like watching those monsters from A Quiet Place that know where you are if you make any noise at all. Bird had a level of clairvoyance that bordered on the unnatural. In '85, he ended up 1 steal away from a quadruple-double after playing just the first 3 quarters. His passing was famously infectious and helped transform the Celtics of the 80s into an ideal that basketball teams at all levels are still shown tape of. They moved the ball with precision and intent, always looking for better shots and determined to get the entire team involved in the effort. That fact is almost entirely attributable to Bird and his wizardry with the ball. This acumen also helped Bird become the only player with a GOAT claim to transition successfully into other basketball roles after his playing career. In his 3 years as the head coach of the Pacers, Bird won a Coach of the Year award, coached the Pacers to their first and only finals appearance, and gave Michael Jordan as much trouble as he'd ever gotten in his career in the '98 Eastern Conference
That's fucking
Finals.
true.
After moving into a front office role for Indiana, he won Executive of the Year in 2012, becoming the only person to have an MVP, Coach of the Year, and Executive of the Year award. On the court or off of it, inside and out, Larry Bird sees basketball as only he can. That intelligence also lent itself to Bird's defining skill, making the big plays. Remember, NBA players get paid to win games. James Harden is getting paid nearly $40 million this year because he's supposed to help the Rockets win games. Victory can be achieved in a lot of ways, and the win column doesn't care how it happens. As Mark Sinclair once said,
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
Facts.
but when your team is down 1 in a crucial playoff game with 8 seconds left, and you need to hit a shot to stay in the series and keep your season alive, that's where players really separate themselves and earn their money. Love it or hate it, it's the players that come through in the big moments that live forever in our memories. Some players, for whatever reason, were never able to do it consistently.
That's
Some
tough,
players
Patrick.
were truly
That's
outstanding at it. Larry Bird was the best at it.
Objectively the best? Let's talk about it.
I'm not going to give you the stats about his field goal shooting under 2 minutes with a score that's this close, or tell you who has the most buzzer beaters, or any of that.
Take that for data.
I'm just going to show you clutch moments in clutch situations. 1985 against the Blazers. Bird drops 48 points, including this. Down 1 with 2 seconds left.
Inbound pass, the double teaming Bird. Larry, fake, fall away.
That's nasty.
1985 against the Hawks. Bird sets the Celtics scoring record with 60 points with shots like these.
They open the right side. Bird the fall away. He drills it again. That's the best shooting I've ever seen.
1986 against the Rockets. Not all of Bird's clutch moments were singular. The bigger the moment, the bigger his performance. In Game 6 of the 1986 NBA Finals, Bird clinches the championship with a triple-double in what he calls the best game he ever played.
2 seconds on the shot clock. Bird wants a three out of it. He gets it.
1987 against the Washington Bullets. Bird hits one shot to tie it before it's waved off because of a timeout. Hits another shot to tie it up for real.
Crowd is standing up. It goes now to Bird. Bird goes up top.
And then in double overtime, down one, he does this.
Damn, bro.
Go to Bird. He's got a shot. Get it.
Jeez, man, that's OD.
It's all over.
For 3 years, from 1986 to 1988, the three-point contest knew no other champion but Larry Bird.
He's still going to drop one here quickly. 14. This is a tie for the money.
That's swaggy,
1987
bro.
Eastern Conference Finals, Game 5. Tied at 2 games apiece against the Bad Boy Pistons, this enormous game would put the winner 1 game away from the NBA Finals. The Pistons are up 1 with seconds remaining. The ball goes out of bounds off the Celtics. Isaiah Thomas just needs to inbound the ball to win the game.
Now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ.
That's super iconic, bro. That's super iconic. I don't know if there's a more clutch moment than that in NBA history, bro. For real. Especially because they ended up winning the championship, but just because of like if you take as soon as that turnover happened, like what are their chances of winning that game? Probably like, you know what I mean, slim to none. I mean, you have Kawhi Leonard's corner shot, but the game was tied, Game 7, sure. And you have Kyrie's game-winning shot against the Warriors, but there's a lot of time left on the clock. You know what I mean? And the game was tied, but I think they were losing. You know what I mean? Like, just that whole sequence, I think that's probably the most clutch situation in sports ever, in my opinion.
There are truly too many big games and big moments for me to go through without this ending up as a documentary. But that all leads me to this, what I really want to talk about. 1987, NBA Finals, Game 4 against the Lakers. LA is up 2-1, and the Celtics need to win to tie the series and stay alive.
So we need
Bird hits a
they need
3
that.
with 12 seconds left to go up by 2.
Bird goes for 3.
Dang. That's so huge, though. That's so huge.
Green comes down and gets fouled with 8 seconds left.
Is he gonna make both?
He makes the first, but misses the second. LA ends up with the ball with 7 seconds left, down 1 point.
Okay.
In the low post being
Magic.
by Dennis
Wait,
Johnson.
I don't know what happens.
It's in the ball game now.
Oh shit!
Magic hits this,
Oh, fuck.
the baby skyhook.
Magic with a hook shot. Scores.
That's nasty.
2 seconds left.
Jeez.
Down 1.
Dennis Johnson on the inside.
Jeez. Oh fuck, corned beef for the game.
What do you think happens?
Hey, yo, that's freaky.
It
Oh,
wasn't that. When I paused the tape and the ball was hanging in the air, you thought it was going in. Bird thought it was going in.
MVP
Magic thought it was going in.
with 2 seconds left.
I've seen this game before, and I still think it's going to go in.
that's hilarious.
But it didn't.
From 16 back to
Pat Riley said it himself.
James Brown. JB.
We got lucky. And that, a missed shot in the NBA Finals, is why he's the clutchest. Because after he makes the big plays,
That's crazy.
the big games, hits the big shots, time and time again, you expect him to hit every shot, to win every game. And in those fleeting moments when he doesn't, when he looks like a mere human, when he looks like everyone else who tries to do what he does, you just can't believe it. That's what Larry Bird did. He made the big plays so often you thought he was going to make them every time. He helped turn basketball into a global phenomenon, paving the way for every Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, or LeBron James who comes through our lives. He played basketball in its purest form and captained a team that is consistently ranked among the greatest of all time. He has the second highest win percentage in the history of the NBA, behind Magic by less than 0.5%. About
Damn.
he was the complete package.
that one game.
A player with no holes in his game whatsoever. They called him Basketball Jesus. He didn't get that name without doing something extraordinary. He saved basketball, and he did it by playing it better than anyone else. Here's Magic at Bird's retirement in 1993.
Larry Bird said that there would be another Larry Bird one day. And Larry, there will never, ever, ever be another Larry Bird. To the greatest basketball player ever, but more important, a friend forever.
Hey Mike, I'm going to Boston Market. I'll be back.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. This was a really fun video to make, and I'm going to continue to make more of them, so please feel free to subscribe. And while you're at it, go ahead and check out my website, ballsandsuch.com, where I post things about, like, if the solar system was a basketball team, could Uranus hit a jump shot? You know, really important stuff.
Yeah. Let me get it. Let me vibe for a second. I'm alive, so I gotta thank God for the blessings, the check-ins, the money coming in and rolling in. You already know, jump shot, this shit is going in. Alright, look. I think he made a really good case. I think he made a really good case. I think his best lens that he took was that
behind every great video is a win.
You know, maybe Larry Bird isn't the best basketball player ever. I like, nobody can convince me that Michael Jordan isn't the best basketball player to ever play. Maybe you can convince me that other players are greater based on your criteria of great, because that's super subjective. But in terms of who's just better at basketball, I don't think anyone's better at basketball than Larry. However, if we're talking about greatest, which is what we're talking about, being the GOAT, the greatest of all time, I think he made a great case, because when you talk about greatness, I feel like has a lot to do with the value that you add, right? If I'm great at something, it indicates, or at least suggests, that I add a lot of value in that thing. And if you talk about the history of the NBA, right, who's probably the top three most important players of all time? Maybe the top two. The top two are Bird and Magic, right? So that's a great case, you know what I mean? Probably the most valuable NBA player of all time in a time where, you know, the NBA was in shambles. You know, they hear that a lot. And these games, I can already see, like, just the energy off of it is just probably some of the best basketball ever. You know, in terms of its competitive nature and narrative, you know, maybe not in terms of execution, which it may be, you know, but I would say that he's made a great case with, you know, just Larry Bird just adding the most value out of probably any NBA player ever. And not only that, but him probably, you know, when you take his prime years are as good as anybody's ever. I mean, if you think about it, you know what I mean? What do you say? 40, 50, 90 club. He was the first person to ever do that. He was the first ever real sharp shooter in the league ever. He was I'm trying to think, what else did he say? He won 3 back-to-back MVPs, and he did all of that in probably the most competitive era of basketball, in terms of just talent-wise. So I think that he made a really good case in that situation. Him being the most clutch player ever, I don't really know if that's necessarily true. Maybe he gives you the feel that he is, and you know, a lot of what people say about him should have a lot to do with it, or should have something to do with it. You know what I mean? A lot of people did vouch for Larry Bird being probably the most clutch player of all time. There's a lot of stories and stuff, like he's probably had the most iconic career ever. Like when you think about he's probably one of the best trash talkers ever. He was one of the best players in the most competitive time. The MVPs he won, he's probably on the best team of all time when you really think about it, or one of the best teams of all time with the '86 Celtics. You know what I mean? The way he turned that franchise around, the way he turned the entire NBA around. When you think about who has the most iconic career, you know, not necessarily even who's the greatest or who's the best, but who's just the most iconic. Like when you say their name, it just holds weight. Like basketball icon. Like probably, I mean, it's probably between Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, probably the two biggest icons to ever play the game. And being that Larry Bird saved the NBA, you know, there's a good case, you know, depending on what you define as greatness, you know. If my definition of greatness is like, you know what, who added the most value. You know, who or who's the most complete basketball player, or who has the most complete basketball NBA resume. When you talk about a resume, not only statistically but non-statistically, and statistically, and also the way people talk about you, and you know how you really did in your prime, and all things considered, and the value and everything is, if everything is considered equal, then I would say that Larry Bird is probably the greatest player of all time. If all things are equal, I mean, the way people talk about you, how good you were, you know what I mean? You know, the value that you added to the NBA. If all things were considered equal, which I don't believe that they are, but you could easily make a case that it is. If all things are considered equal, and what makes the person the greatest player of all time, right? Everything on your resume is considered equal. I'd say Larry Bird is probably the greatest player of all time. So, I mean, listen, man, he did make a really great case, in my opinion. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough, you know? But I've done a lot of talking already, so definitely like, comment, share, and subscribe if you like these type of videos. I definitely enjoyed. And let me know if you want me to react to more making the case. Right, somebody says, yo, react to this Larry Bird making the case. You know what I'm saying? So I reacted to it. I forget. It's been a minute since I've actually seen the comment, but definitely appreciate. It was actually a handful of you guys saying, yo, react to the Larry Bird making the case. So definitely let me know if you want me to react to the other making the cases. Definitely leave your comments on what you feel. You know, just the comments is open. Whatever you feel, just let me know and I'll reply most likely. But yeah, I'll see you when I see you. Peace.